This week's game review is 5-Minute Dungeon. This is a pretty neat game. It's a neat concept if you haven't heard of it yet. So it's a cooperative game where all the players, it's 2 to 5 players, and all of them work together to defeat obstacles, monsters, people, things like that, and ultimately to defeat bosses. So we'll go ahead and talk about it a little bit, but it's rated like a 7.1 on Game Board Geeks. I would give it really like an 8 or so if you know what you're getting into. It's not some heavily strategy-based game that's going to take 3 hours, right? This game is always 5 or less minutes to play, so that's something kind of cool about it. It's 2 to 5 players, like I mentioned, ages 8 and up. I think it retails for about $35, somewhere around there. But it's a good game, so I'm going to go ahead and open it and talk about it a little bit, why you might be interested in it. So the concept of the game is you and your companions are stuck inside a dungeon with 5 different dungeon bosses, which are the bad guys, right? And for example, Baby Barbarian, you got some other cool ones, the Dungeon Master, a freaking dragon. Yeah, it's pretty cool. The illustrations are pretty neat, but the goal of the game is within 5 minutes to defeat whichever boss you're playing in that round. So there are 5 different bosses, 5 minutes to beat each one, and each one gets more complex than the last one. So Baby Barbarian's the easiest. We'll explain that. That's the first one. So to defeat any boss, you have to lay down cards from your hand that match the number of symbols here. And I'll give you an example of that. Each player has a deck of cards, and they go drawing into their hand from that deck. Depending on how many players, depends on how big your hand can be. I think if you're doing like 2 players, it's like 5 cards, so we'll just kind of do that, or somewhere around there. You see, I got symbols. Some of these symbols match the symbols on this boss. So for example, I could lay down this. Now there's only 2 of those left that we gotta lay. I can lay down any combination. Now the 2 swords are gone, so we have 2 arrows left and 2 jumping mans. The great thing is it doesn't require me to lay all the cards. It's any combination of my entire team or the other people I'm playing with. So they could be laying down cards too to fulfill this. Once we've gotten a card down to match all of these symbols, the boss is defeated. Unfortunately, to get to the boss, and I guess I should say fortunately because it's fun, but this is the easiest boss. It's boss number 1. There are 20 door cards to go through before you get to this. So this would go down like this, and about 20 cards, I think that's a little bit more, would go on top. And so you can see you would pull the card, and then you have to defeat this one first. It's a monster, jumping man, arrow. So you put it down, you and your team would try and beat it. Next one, a ghost, boo! And yeah, you can see it's a person to defeat it, and it kind of just keeps doing that, right? Different requirements to beat it. This is a mini boss. You can see by the helmet skull thing. So this is a mini boss that's generally a little bit harder to beat, okay? After you've gotten through this whole deck, then you gotta lay these down in order to beat the boss, okay? And all of this has to be done, this whole deck, everything has to be done within 5 minutes or less. Now, we pointed out before that there's obstacles, people, monsters. So there's different types of cards to defeat. And this is important because at the beginning of the game, you choose your character, your hero, who you want to be. So as you can see, there's these, sorry, I got them the wrong way around. There's these heroes, the gladiator, for example. And your pile of cards would go here, and then as you discard, your discard pile would go here. But you notice this person has a special ability, Intimidate. Discard 3 cards to defeat a person. So we saw that some of the doors are people cards. Then if we look over here, we can see that this character, the sorceress, discard 3 cards to defeat an obstacle. And so each one of them is a little bit different. You can see this one, discard 3 cards to choose another player to draw 4 cards. And so there's these different heroes that you can choose, and you get the associated draw pile for that color, and it goes here. And yeah, each character is pretty cool. They have neat abilities. Remember again that you win this game by defeating the ultimate boss in 5 minutes or less. You lose the game by either not being able to play any more cards, so you get stuck, you and your team, or by running out of time, or by running out of cards. The cool thing is after you've beaten the one boss, you can see there are other bosses like we showed earlier, and they have more cards to make it through, so they're even harder. right? I think the hardest one is this guy right here, the Dungeon Master. You gotta get through 40 cards before you get to him, and then you gotta beat him on this scale. So, I would recommend this game. It's fun. Like I said, it's like 35 bucks. Yeah, it's a little more on the pricey side, but it's a great game. And if you got some smaller kids, or even adults, my wife and I and her family, we play this game. We love it. So, highly recommend it. Give it a go.